The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
All right, GM body.
All right.
Hey guys,
What's up, buddy? How's it going?
good to see the bonds coming along. That's a pretty cool system.
Right? Yeah, I think so.
Seems like an easy way to make some money. I mean, just sell some bonds.
Exactly. You know, right? I'm like, oh, nice. I can help facilitate that.
The only thing, I guess, what's the difference between a bond and insurance? Like in this case, why would it be a bond versus insurance? Or is it kind of the same thing? Or is it just like,
I don't know.
playing
Maybe
with
we're not
words?
using the proper language, but
no, I mean, I don't know.
yeah, honestly, I don't know the technical. I mean, you're saying the person is bonded. Bond is insurance, right? Yeah, I think it's a form of insurance, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, you're having like you have insurance bond providers effectively.
Yeah.
So then
Otherwise, what would you would say that because they're not buying insurance, it's not like they're spending, giving you 1 Monero to be insured for 10 Monero, right? They're physically giving you the value of what the bond is. I don't know. We're calling it a bond.
No, it's fine. I'm
Open
not
to changing the name
language.
if I'm technically wrong, but
No, I'm not criticizing the language in any way. I just thought maybe there's something going on there with language that I didn't understand. So either way,
I just want to make
cooler.
it clear that the sellers that they're buying a bond, right, from somebody, so they're not technically asking a third party to be an escrow, but they're buying a bond. It's the easiest way
I mean,
yeah,
it totally makes sense. So yeah, you're basically you're taking some of the seller's money, saying, hey, if this guy goes under, I'll cover his in-flight listings or whatever, or something happens here, right? You're basically on the hook for any kind of loss that happens. Could it be in transit, or it could be like other issues, or I mean, basically anything, right?
Yeah, it could be any type of scenario, and then the mediator is the one that decides that, right? So the mediator is the judge, and then the bond holder is literally just the person that holds the bond and then acts on whatever the mediator says. And then so they're a good bond holder if they're not failing to lose the Monero that they're holding, right? That's an issue, right? If they lose the Monero, they're responsible. That bondholder is probably going to get a low rating. Will no longer be able to do bond holding business on XMR Bazaar. And then they also have to show that they appropriately listen to the mediator, because the mediator is instructing them, okay, now send, the Monero back to buyer, right?
Yeah.
And then it's all on the platform. Like you get notified, right? So the bondholder will just get a notification, like decision. Mediator has made a decision. Please send, whatever 0.2 minute XMR to this person, and then it keeps track of it in the dashboard. So.
Yeah, okay. So I'm sorry. I mean, I know you've probably explained this quite a lot. So if I'm selling a bond, like hypothetically, if I wanted to, then I'm going to get paid by the seller, and that's the amount, like that's the flat amount that is owed back, or do I get some kind of like profit there?
You could set some basic parameters for for the bond you're selling, right? So you could say, all right, I'm body, and you could just set I'm selling bonds valued from 0.1 Monero to 10 Monero. Or you could say I'm only selling bonds valued from 0.1 Monero to 1 Monero, right? So if there's that. You can first set the parameter of the size of the bonds you're willing to sell. And then you additionally can set a fee based on an amount and a time length. So you could say these bonds are valid for 6 months, and it costs 0.1 Monero per 6 months for me to hold a bond for you.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the
So you
market.
could, yeah, we can see how the
works out
market,
in
right?
that
So
case.
right,
Like,
right
do we
now,
sell along, like, kind of like what you would typically see for bond rates, or for maybe insurance? Like, what kind of cross comparability do we have to established industries?
right. And then coming into that too, right? Like, so you could come on there and maybe you're offering a lower fee, but people have less trust in this user, this bond seller initially, right? Because they don't really know. Obviously, we're going to curate it, right? I'm not going to open it up to anybody can be a bond seller. It's going to be curated in that we'll kind of handpick people that can, maybe eventually, if XMR Bazaar is really rolling along and we figure out how to, I don't know, maybe eventually we just open it up and let the market decide. But initially, we'll curate it. So like if Bawdy is like, yeah, I want to be bonds. Obviously, I know Bawdy. I was like, yeah, I would allow him to come on and be a bond seller. Tux, other users that become popular on XMR Bazaar that have a good reputation will give them access to being bond sellers. So that's kind of how the way I look at it. And then, yeah, they'll be able to set their fee. So right now, me as the first bond seller, I set my fee at 0.1 XMR per 6 months. So we'll see. I mean, somebody bid at it. They took it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So now in 6 months from now, they have to send another 0.1 Monero if they want to continue to maintain that bond. If they don't want to continue, they don't have to send it, and now they could just request their Monero back, and then the bond gets sent back to them, whatever's in the bond.
Yeah.
So
All right. Right on. Maybe I'll hit you up offline or something to do that.
awesome.
I tried to add that one listing, but I don't know. I hit the. I guess it's probably my browser. I don't know, on Google Chromium.
Yeah, you ran into the issue with the key.
Yeah, it's just like Elias said, try using a different browser maybe. So I was like,
You
okay,
were creating an account for the first. You were logging in for the first time, creating an account for the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I
And it was
had,
when you-
there's probably lots of Monero people. I mean, there are lots of Monero people in Mexico. Maybe we should start trying to kick that off. I just haven't really been part of XMR Bazaar because most of the activity seems to be United States. There's a couple listings from Mexico, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, you got to be the change you want to see, brother. Take the lead, please.
Bro, I have a lot of shit that I need to get rid of. I have
There you
stuff
go.
that just accumulated over the years, and now it's just laying around, tucked in
Yeah,
closets.
and then also just listing yourself, if you're interested, listing yourself as somebody willing to exchange Monero for pesos, vice versa.
Yeah.
And then start that ecosystem, and then before you know it, you got 10 people in Mexico City that are down to do Monero to peso exchanges. Things like that. Yeah. Oh, yes. So we are. That's also very much on our to-do list. We want to add a location feature to XMR Bazaar, so similar to like Craigslist, right? So you could view Craigslist globally, but now it's really city-based, right? So you could look at New York City Craigslist, you could look at Wyoming Craigslist, you could look at Berlin Craigslist, right? And it shows all the listings local to that area. That's how Craigslist is really organized. So I want to do the same, and that was kind of always the idea, do the same with XMR Bazaar. So initially, I didn't want to do that because there was no need, right? We just need enough people using it globally first so we don't have an empty village. But now we're getting a little more traction. We could add this feature where you can view XMR Bazaar and just view, United States. Initially, just be by country. You could view U.S. You could view Argentina. Maybe there's only 2 listings there right now. You can view Mexico, right? But then the idea is that's where people, how they consume XMR Bazaar, they consume it kind of locally based on listings that are in their area.
Yeah, sounds plausible, sounds reasonable.
So they'll be launching soon, and then obviously we'll have it in the native language of whatever country it's you're viewing. So if you're viewing Mexico, obviously it will be in Spanish, and then the thought is obviously the people posting the listings will be posting them natively in Spanish anyway.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'll try and get on there and get my stuff sorted out. Been working on some projects lately, learning how to
Awesome,
code some C.
Oh yeah, what are you working on?
Ooh,
Just
very
like
nice.
for
There's this. So if I don't know if you guys have heard of the whole X11 debacle happening right now, or
Yep.
basically Red Hat has become nefarious. They always were, like always has been, and people are finally realizing it. Anyways, I have this system that I created that sort of it sort of copies the inspired by the cubes concept, but it's on FreeBSD with jails for segregation. So you have kernel space separation, way more efficient. But it's not nearly as secure as cubes, but it's more secure than your average desktop. Anyways, the biggest hole in my system has been window separation. There's this software called Zephyr, and it enables you to just spin up nested X servers inside of your larger X11 like context, like on your host. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out how to sort of automate all that, but I found a couple things and figured that out. And so now I've like kind of revamped my system so that all of the windows, all of the apps are segregated. They can't spy on each other's keystrokes, clipboards, or screens. All of the different, whether it's apps within a certain, like a particular jail or just apps in general. So that's actually, it's kind of crazy to me that it's not a part of like current desktop environments, because I'm not a novice exactly, but I'm not advanced. And I figured out how to shell script this thing with Zephyr, and then to get the clipboard seamless, where you could copy from one place to another, because it's hard to cross those boundaries. Um, to get that copy paste working, I just had to do like window monitoring and then do some like forwarding. But it needed to happen at C because I had to make actual system calls to X11 to actually make that a reality. So, anyways, I've been working on that for the past week, and pretty close. It seems I have a manual version of it working, but I'm trying to get a more automated version of it working, and I'm very close. So very nerdy, but to me, I think it's pretty cool to have segregation on my. I know Wayland does it by default, but Wayland, Red Hat. What do you think, Tux?
It is kind of weird to see how, like, I understand why there's been this like move away from X11 because it's old, it's a monster, it's very insecure. But I don't understand what's kind of interesting to me is seeing the amount of hostility from Red Hat and Canonical on the continued development of what is it, X Libre now. This guy spun off X11, now it's like X Libre.
Yeah.
It's weird to see the amount of insane like hostility towards that, in a way that's kind of makes it like a political thing. It's not just about the technology; it's also a political thing. I don't like this guy. Personally, I use Wayland just because of. For me, it works. For me, it works well. I know there's specific applications where Wayland still does not work very well, like screen sharing. Right, Wayland does not work well screen sharing for certain applications and stuff like that. But I use Wayland just because I do like the extra security that it has. And then for me, it works better with multiple monitors than X11 does because it handles multiple monitors properly and correctly, and HDR as well. So for my use cases, Wayland makes sense. But for a lot of people, I know they prefer X11 for various reasons.
Yeah.
And that's cool. What you're doing is trying to add more security to X11.
Yeah, it really is interesting, kind of weird to me that there isn't this sort of that desktop environments don't embed this functionality, because it wasn't that hard for me to do. Like I I had to learn a little bit more about the X11 protocol. All right, I used some AI LLMs to help me get a little bit more little educated on that. But the protocol itself, so like it's kind of funny. This whole thing is it happens in these layers. Like you have the X11 protocol. It's actually segregated in a way that kind of makes a lot of sense. You have the underlying X11 protocol, which are just primitives for how to draw windows and do all the common stuff. And then layered on top of that, you have actual implementations like Xorg, and then you have even further extensibility with different tooling that's ended up inside of Xorg. And then you have this program called Zephyr. You have other programs, but they just use the underlying X11 primitives. And sure, there's a lot of cruft that needs to be cleaned out. But I mean, just because software is old doesn't make it bad. Like we have so much software that's 30 years old that we still use, and it's just rock solid because we've had C all that time, and it's just been absolutely optimized and fixed for as much security as possible. So it feels like the move to Wayland just it again, it's a corporate thing. It's a Red Hat thing. It's like that this wasn't totally necessary. I'm not saying it's insecure or anything, but it is becoming its own behemoth, right? It's becoming its own kind of like large cruft of code as well. But it's kind of weird to me that none of that was developed, because that really lands on the desktop environment to do that, to implement the underlying primitives.
Which a lot of them were missing for quite a long time.
In Wayland, yeah. I guess Wayland just, being the corporate thing, being the place where the money was, where the developers could get paid. That's just where the development went. So, yeah, I think probably maybe in the next week I'll have this like released. My system isn't production release. It works for me, right? Works on my box, but it's not like it's on GitHub and everything, and it's pretty close. It would only take me a couple months of dedicated work to probably like polish up the installer, package it nicely into ports, and then like just release it in a way that people could use more seamlessly. But it's still kind of a nerd system. You're still going to have to do configuration. It still is designed for tiling, window manager, etc. So I don't know. We'll see if I ever end up doing that. I'm working on another project. This was kind of a side track in the midst of another project that I'm trying to make happen. So anyways.
Tux, I just want to mention, body sound sounds low also compared to yours. So I don't know if it's your sound. You just sound louder than everybody else. If you want to maybe boost our sound, lower yours, or
turn mine down even more. That's weird because my physical microphone control is pretty low already, but I'll turn it down even more.
Or it's really more that they're low. You're actually good. It's everybody else is low, because I can only hear you on my outside speakers and not everybody else.
I can turn myself up if I need to.
There we go. I boosted you up.
Cool. Give me a boost. All right. So I guess, let me do one more thing here. Let me scroll up. Change the zoom. All right. There we go. I just need to be able to see. I've got like the double monitor. I need to be able to see the charts and the comments. All right. So I'm good to go. Yeah. So I guess if we're ready, we could just we could pivot here into price.
Yeah, that M2 money supply really kicking off, giving us some gains.
Yeah, and I guess it tells a lot of that story, right? It tells you what's going to happen. Some of the charts, I don't know. Some of the charts might be dubious what some people are doing when they apply this kind of offset. But I have seen other charts where people are showing us the weekly update on the M2 money supply, and I don't know where they're getting that. I've tried to find it. I'm only getting the lagging M2 because, yeah, I mean, there's a crystal ball right there, right? You don't need all this speculation and fancy statistical whatever voodoo. You could just watch the M2 and decide what's going to happen from there. And probably you could even create some sort of like divergence calculator, right? How much has the overall market diverged from the M2 supply? Probably you would use z-scores to do that, again, because that's how you normalize across disparately like numeric disparity of prices of things. Anyways, if anyone can find that, at this point I would pay you. In fact, I'd give a bounty for 1 XMR for anyone that could find that for me. Seriously, 1 XMR to anyone that can find not the lagging M2 supply, not this stuff. Where is it? Do I not have my measure? Oh yeah, here it is. Not this guy, right? I know where this guy is, obviously.
I'm Fred, right?
Yeah, but the actual because you have to calculate it. You have to look at all these different balance sheets and different stuff, and I don't know what they're looking at, but you can infer the global M2 on the basis of a lot of other metrics, and maybe some of that's proprietary.
That'd be a superpower,
dude. I think it's on Bloomberg Terminal. I keep seeing the guy that I've seen. I think Joe Consorti or something.
Oh, how much is that? Like $50,000?
Yeah, exactly. And as much as that is lucrative, I don't know if I want to pay Bloomberg $50K.
Literally gate kept by the big boys for bigger boys.
I mean, maybe I'll just bite the bullet and do it at some point, because I mean that should be pretty lucrative, but still. But all right, whatever. Anyways, 1 XMR to anyone who can find me a way to just at least keep an eyeball on that chart once per week. That would be extremely helpful. All right, let's see here. So we got the Monero price in front of us. We've had some positive movement. In fact, we've been looking for positive movement in general for crypto here for the past 2 or 3 weeks now. We've been sort of saying consolidation with upward bias, and then last week I felt more like, no, it's about time for us to really look for some upside. So yeah, Monero at least has had some upside. Not a whole lot, but crypto in general, Bitcoin's at new all-time highs. Yeah, so we're looking good here. Like we said, if we think that the crypto market's going to continue on marching higher, follow the stock market, follow that M2, then we would expect that Monero is going to at least have some performance along those lines. And, you know, we'll probably, any like true price movements towards the upside will probably be slightly delayed, right? Don't expect Monero to just pump with the rest of the market. That liquidity arrives, you know, like even if there is underlying support where plebs are buying the market, you know, in a lot of cases, you're going to watch the market move on the terms of the insiders. And I mean, especially when we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about the major coins, you know, the top 10, whatever. We're talking about large corporate interests. We're talking about BlackRock. We're talking about the stock market. We're talking about ETFs, right? So a lot of that action is going to happen on the timeline of the big boys when they want it to happen, right? So, you know, we're going to see those break. If we're seeing extra liquidity into the market, we're seeing that impetus to make the pump, then you're going to see that hit the bigger coins first. They want to highlight those coins. They want to squash that Monero attention. And Monero will eventually get some of that hand-me-down liquidity. And eventually it all evens out. And eventually we'll have a bear market and Monero actually is used for real stuff and people actually hang on to it. People actually believe in it. I don't know how many people actually believe in Cardano these days, right? Like, I don't think there's too many true believers out there.
I had
For
someone
Cardano.
recently ask us to add Cardano to Cake Wallet at the Bitcoin conference.
Yeah, see, that's a notable event. You recently had someone finally be like, "Hey, can we get some Cardano up in here?" Right? Like, okay, but how many people have said, "Hey, can you add, I don't know, XRP or something?" Unfortunately, there's actually XRP believers, true believers out there. I mean, the bearded man has just, you know, he's got a, especially for boomers, he's just got that trustable, you know, he's got a nice, well-maintained beard. He just has that look that you can trust him. He's the corporate polished man you can trust. Personally, I look at him, I see a scumbag, you know, but all right, whatever. Don't need to name names at the moment. But yeah, I don't really trust the XRP guys. But, you know, they still kind of did crypto a little bit of service at the edges, right? If they sold some securities, but XRP itself was ruled to be not a security, right? That's a difference between selling a security and then the whole network being a security, right? They sold an investment contract. Basically, they sold promises of what they would do to make that token more valuable, but that doesn't make the whole network. Just like you know, the oranges were not the security, the groves were not the security. The contract that was sold to the people that bought those oranges in Howie, that contract was the security. So, anyways, kind of rehashing some old stuff there, but they kind of did a little bit of service if you think about it, because if they were able to keep XRP out of being a security, then anything else that comes out, like if that network is not a security, then the rest of the networks are not securities, right? So that's kind of some precedent that has been long established. It costs, you know, millions and millions of dollars in court, but it's established. So that helps. You know, in general, that helps a lot for a lot of networks, depending on, you know, how multi-networked you are in crypto. Anyways, yeah, Monero looking all right here. Probably, you know, we could probably expect to see some continued upside, maybe some wakes up, maybe some wakes down. Who knows, right? But overall, I'm reasonably mildly bullish here for the Monero price. I really would right now at this moment like to see Monero shoot for the upper standard deviation, right? That's really what I want to see. That would be strong price action, do some consolidation, maybe some of this, maybe some of that, right? Actually, what would be even better is to do this and then consolidate above it. And then right around here in such a hypothetical scenario, that's where you would expect to start taking off. Anyways, yeah, our primary spot to aim for would be here. That would be your first area of resistance to expect for Monero. When it comes to the relation to Bitcoin price, we've still been bleeding out. You know, like we said, Bitcoin's getting the primary new liquidity. Bitcoin price has been bullish. So normally, like I said, you would kind of expect this to act as support, and really it did, right? There's your first spot. You're kind of touching it, and then that's, you know, it's unsurprising to see this chart break down just from a technical perspective. And it wouldn't surprise me to see it actually go down a little bit further to this spot, particularly if we're going to expect continued bullishness in Bitcoin. And I think, I mean, we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I mean, I think it would make some sense that Bitcoin has a little bit more to run here. XMR versus gold, yeah, just kind of looking the same. I guess we did have, yeah, we had our big movement to the upside, doing some consolidation here. All right, That's the weekly chart, so we could go to the daily, maybe get some higher resolution. Yeah, this is good, right? If you're going to want to perform versus gold, then you're going to expect you want to perform in this zone, right? And it could take some time, right? If XMR versus gold is going to break out, it could take a little bit of time before that actually happens, right? Like you need to consolidate this area and then break out. But anyways, not a super exciting chart there. Mostly because I have both those assets. So if either one's performing, I'm happy with it. I'm doing good. Market cap dominance for Monero looks a lot like the Bitcoin chart because unfortunately Bitcoin is like 60% dominance. That's great. Let's have the dominant coin be one that's like barely usable for transactions. That's brilliant. But no one uses it for transactions, so I guess that's fine. Okay, going to actually, let's look at the transaction counts for Monero. We're still hanging out here at the 25K area. Had a little bit up, had a little bit down. I guess we really want to see this come to the upside. I say it every week. I'll keep saying it every week. Want to see that come to the upside. Let's take a look at the mining difficulty. I think we're still doing pretty good. Yeah, mining difficulty. I guess we had a little bit of a drop off in the past week, but nothing major. Still on an upward trajectory overall, so this is good. We looks like hey, I wonder if this looks like they changed their on the left on the axis here that says 600 gigas, and I thought these levels were at 500, so maybe they changed their analysis. I had noticed that BitInfo charts was showing Monero at slightly lower hash rate than I was seeing on other sites, so maybe they changed their calculation and then just back adjusted the whole chart. I don't know. You'd have to ask them. Anyways, in general, still looking good on the hash rate there. Looking at the privacy altcoins, they actually haven't done too much for the past week. Zcash seems to be a little bit, moving up to the upside a little bit. Pirate Chain, not really seeing much again, just kind of flat. Not flat and anemic, right? Not really anything that you would get too excited about. You'd really want to, given the fact that the rest of the crypto market seems to be doing reasonably good, you'd really hope for a better performance from a chain like Pirate, but it does not seem to be forthcoming. We got Fyro also just kind of flat. Interesting, these very long flat periods of flatness is something that we kind of see with Pirate Chain as well. So I don't know, maybe it's just not, maybe that's a symptom of low liquidity, right? Maybe there's just not that much liquidity in Fyro, but I do think that it's not, I don't think it's necessarily a bad project. Seems like they've got their focuses on trying to develop interesting stuff. So Xano, we can go get your fungible, non-fungible tokens and release more dogs and cats onto the blockchains. And that's seems to be, there's maybe a little bit of demand for Xano, maybe a little bit of speculation for Xano. All right, sure. To me, this looks like consolidation, looks like falling volatility. It might be at the same time, if the crypto is going to go up, maybe Xano is going to go up with it. I don't know. I would start raising an eyebrow if Xano starts pumping again before or out of sync or out of cycle with Monero and Zcash. Let's just call them Monero Zcash combined. That would be an interesting chart. Maybe we should, instead of dividing one by the other. So here we have Monero divided by Zcash, right? Maybe we could multiply them together. That would be interesting to see how that chart looks. But overall, Monero doing quite well versus Zcash. I mean, this chart is just beautiful in a way. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's the best chart ever. Not really. It is not the best chart ever. It is. I mean, in terms of showing its strength, it kind of is. This chart is evidence of a lot of fuckery in my mind. If we really were to look at it, this is the weekly. But overall, I mean, Monero's just going to keep going up against Zcash ad infinitum. It's except for maybe someday Monero is maxed out. We're running 50 million transactions a day or something. And we're kind of looking at bandwidth constraints, and then maybe we say, all right, Zcash, I don't know. Anyways, but by then probably some other better privacy coin will come along, like DarkFi or something. DarkFi Bros win.
Have L2.
Yeah, maybe we even have some. That would be amazing. God, that would be. I mean, it's not the solution, but it's enough solution, right? You can offload enough volume from main chain that you can expand it to a point that you're saying, hey, we're actually we can encompass a significant portion of global economy, right? Maybe it wouldn't be 100%, but if you could do 10%, that's amazing. That's huge. It's just incredible. If you could do, even if you could do 1% of global economy, that's massive, right? So yeah, anyways, Monero versus Zcash doing good there. Gren, I guess we watch Gren now because it's a privacy coin. So I don't know, their price chart doesn't look very good. This looks like a spot to sell if I was a Gren holder, or trader. If I was trading Gren, like perfect spot right here. You say, hey, you've hit the standard deviation lines. Maybe it's going to go higher, but when you're a trader, you should take your gains, right? It obviously depends on what kind of trader you are. Are you like long term? Are you short term? Whatever. But this would be a spot. That would be a spot that you would say, all right, that's good enough. Okay, let's pivot here to the crypto market. Let's look at Bitcoin because that's the one that's been going up. So we've got the breakout, right? Kind of we talked about this, right? We said, hey, we did have some consternation here with that guy, but once you got right back into that zone, right into this zone, you're saying, hey, the bands have turned up. It's now consolidating with upward bias, and then you expect this breakout to happen. It's actually not too dissimilar to what happened right before the Monero breakout. And again, this is the power of these magical wavy lines, and using them as statistical analysis. I just have a map that other people don't have, and I can see the evidence of things that are happening in the market in ways that are hard to visualize otherwise. So anyways, yeah, at the moment we are looking at, I think we're looking at a little bit more positive side here to get to these purple bands. I don't think that beating those purple bands right there immediately is going to be on the cards, or in the cards, or on the table for Bitcoin. But I do think that a little bit more upside would be a very reasonable thing at this moment. You could even overshoot them, right? Maybe you could get here, overshoot with some exuberance, and then kind of do this. And then these bands will start curling up even more. They are kind of acceleration metrics. They respond rapidly to price, the purple lines, and they respond in a non-arbitrary way. They're yet another statistical extension, a recursive standard deviation. And they respond very well to price, and it's amazing actually how well they work. So we're looking to hit maybe Bitcoin, let's just call it 120 to the 125 range, right? That's about what we're looking at here for Bitcoin. And then it'll need to take some consolidation time from there probably, but probably with upward bias, because the macro crash, as we've talked about now, is basically off the table, right? We're not looking for macro crash at this precise moment. The patterns are still kind of there. I still noticed the patterns of the bond market, but it's always a little bit different every time. And if they want to extend and pretend, I think that they can do it, right? I think that the guys in control of the monetary system have actually gotten pretty sophisticated over the decades of learning how Keynesianism works, right? They had to invent it, and then they had to discover, well, how does Keynesianism really work? And now we're seeing it, right? They actually can. They've got their fingers. They got their fingertips on the levers of control of the markets, and I think they're actually pretty good at it. So there's no reason this thing has to roll over in the immediate future. We have more gains on the table. We will be watching this bond market as usual, slowly moving like molasses for evidence of drop off. Right, that will be something that we'll be watching. Maybe it doesn't have to happen until next year, guys. We've got the not too much, I don't think, has happened with in terms of financial news cycles. Nothing major is really going on. We're just kind of steady state at the moment, and that's actually perfect for markets. That's what markets love. They love steady state. The bond market doesn't look bad. The yield curve is effectively, I wouldn't call it normalized completely, but it has significantly normalized, right? It hasn't normalized as much you would see if we actually had a true macro crash, but we did kind of have, I mean, we could call it a mini crash, maybe a mini macro crash. And just going over here to stocks, pivoting to stocks. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we've talked about here, let's just get the S&P in view. Like we talked about here, we had this big fall off in April. That's 21%, right? That is a pretty significant crash in terms of, I mean, it's not historically like blood in the streets horrible, but it was the threat of blood in the streets, and then they had to walk back the stuff, and it seems like they just have the news cycles on point. They really do. They've got the psychology, the market psychology on fucking point. They know exactly what to do and what to deliver. They know how to appeal to a diverse base. Although a lot of people are getting pissed off. The early Trump supporters are getting pretty pissed off now at the at the Epstein list. And I think a lot of people are seeing through that whole Israel-Iran thing as just being total theater. And they're just like, I think people are just feeling taken advantage of, right? They're like, where was this Epstein list? And you said, oh, we can't release it because national security. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, and you've got this like this crazy-eyed FBI director that he looks like a psychopath. So people are starting to see through it. That's good, but nevertheless, it seems like they have enough AI, LLM, linguistic analysis, and sentiment insight to parse what the market needs to hear, right? So that seems fine, whatever. Gains, you're not going to hear me complaining about gains here. So things have recovered. You got the S&P is actually hitting our purple bands, right, a little bit. So these guys right there. From this point, okay, so it's not too surprising that we needed to see a little bit of consolidation, right? The S&P has been flat this week as Bitcoin and crypto has gone up. Okay, that seems reasonable to me. I would expect, I don't know, from here, the direction is going to be up for the S&P. It doesn't have to be up immediately. You could take a little bit of a fall off and do something like that, right? And then come to the upside, or you could smash up there immediately and then consolidate at a little bit higher level. I don't know. I don't care. At any rate, the point is like, if you're a stock bro, if you've got your 401k, if you're managing your own investment, retirement, etc., for whatever reason, if you're in the stock market, don't be selling here. You need to be long. Okay. Like, yeah, you just need to be like in a consistently long position, looking for the next, 1 to 2 months of gains, most likely, or at worst, sideways consolidation, with an upward bias. Right. So that's kind of the position there on the stock market. I mean, effectively, like what I'm describing to you is steady state. We're back to this like steady state kind of moment here. We'll be looking at some point. What is it? July 12th. I haven't looked at the Trump trial. I need to go check that out. Hopefully, I'll try and get you guys some information next week on how that's going with the Trump tariff trial, to whether or not they're gonna uphold the strike down of a big major component of Trump tariffs. He'll probably just respond by using some other part of the framework and leveraging that for higher tariffs. But at any rate, it kind of doesn't matter. The news on that will be exciting and bullish for the markets. I did forget to talk about altcoins. Let's see who's performing today. It's XRP. We were talking about XRP, trusted bearded man who fought the fight in the federal courts so that we could all have non-securities. You're free to sell securities. You're just going to have to pay the SEC if you do it, and you're free to launch networks without the networks themselves being securities. Sweet. Let's get right on that. Actually, that's kind of good news for DarkFi if you think about it, right? Because if like, again, that's sort of like the top cover. XRP provided some sort of top cover. So in a weird way that I fucking hate to admit, that actually might have been helpful for projects that are honest projects down the line that won't have to fight that fight, especially since honest projects just don't get the limelight. They don't get the limelight of the corporate apparatus, and why would they? So still excited for DarkFi. Win DarkFi, bros. Win DarkFi. I know you guys are in beta, and I prefer you guys to stay in beta as long as necessary to release a real good product, as opposed to releasing something that's mediocre and then having to cling on like, hey, well, it's coming, right? It'll right. The functionality is coming. I'd rather just say, hey, it's coming. The launch will eventually happen. Kind of like Tari did. They got it right. Took them longer than they thought. That's fine. I would much rather see that than promises, exclaim. Okay, so everything else, just kind of doing the same thing, right? Everything is still relatively ranked about the same. We've seen an uptick across prices across the board. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Bitcoin dominance has taken a little bit of a pullback, but it pulled back to kind of the support level. At this point, guys, I know we've been saying it forever, like when alt season, maybe alt season, I don't know. Like, do we have like the liquidity expansion? Are we getting the liquidity expansion? Is that for real? Is the M2 pumped? I guess at some point you would think this could happen, but maybe not, right? Like maybe that's just not going to happen at this point. So maybe alt season will be limited and a lot of alts are going to die. Totally possible. A lot of alts need to die. So maybe this chart is just a reflection. I just wish that some of the better alts would maintain their market cap, right? I just wish that we would see some consolidation around. I mean, I don't know. Could be Ethereum. It's used, right? It's actually like useful. It actually has real financial products built onto it. Obviously, I'd like to see Monero. Hey, do you guys still have me? Am I still with you, Tux? Because my charts are now like they're not loading, and I feel like if that's the case, I might be talking to myself here. feel like I might have dropped out. No, I don't know. Whatever. I guess I'll just keep going just in
Oh,
case.
can you hear me?
Okay, cool.
There we go.
Well,
My mute was stuck. I shall hear you.
Okay, cool. My charts just dropped out. Like they don't seem to be loading for whatever reason. Let me check the comments here. Make sure we don't have any. Do we have any XMR chats? Yeah, I'm getting network error across the board here.
Yeah, no XMR chats. I think there was a comment.
Yeah, go ahead and put it up.
MoneroTopia.
Oh, at the YouTube comments, yeah. MoneroTopia. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at MoneroTopia. Any thoughts there? Looks like a solid pullback. Yeah, we've had MoneroTopia has been having a solid pullback for quite a while now. Where is my? I thought I had it pulled up. I guess not. All right, let's just open up a new tab here. And what do we want to go to? CoinGecko. Yeah, probably CoinGecko, and then we'll search for MoneroTopia. You know, I bet it was in my. No, I assumed that it would have been in my whatever. Wrapped MoneroTopia. Why do we have wrapped MoneroTopia? Yeah. Okay. So same deal. Why is this? Why don't they put this in log? Is there a log button here? Am I missing? Where's the log button? I don't see it. All right. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, where's it sitting right here at? Wow, less than a penny. It seems to keep. It's started bleeding off, and it's still bleeding off. I don't know. Maybe maybe there's just not enough excitement on the crypto markets right now. You know, maybe it's still big daddy Bitcoin that everyone's watching because boomers care about stock markets and now they can watch the ETF. Man, I don't know. I wouldn't have expected it to bleed out this long, to be honest. Here's what you do with a coin like this. It's a new coin. You throw some spaghetti at the wall and then you leave it and you say, I don't care if I lose all of it. You just buy it and then you let it sit there for like 2 or 3 years. Sometimes the shit will pump in 6 months or a year, and you're like, "Wow, that's I've had quite the return there," right? And then you might dump. But you don't buy this thing and say, "Well, let me wait for my gains next week or next month." You just buy it and you say, "Listen, this is a tiny portion of my investable, and I don't care if I lose it." That's the kind of amount you need to be investing into brand new projects, because the gains are so big on some of these new projects. Are so big that it's like you don't need to have you don't need to have a huge amount invested into them. When they pay off, when they hit, they make everything else that you lose worth it. Just be careful that you don't go throwing spaghetti at everybody's wall, right? Just like choose the right wall to throw at. You don't want to buy every new fool project and every new fool meme coin. The meme coin craze is over. There's going to be some new ones. You probably aren't going to know which ones they are. Maybe you'll have wind of one that makes sense. Maybe some new meme hits the streets and it's just like all the rage, right? Like when Pepe coin hit Bitcoin on crap with the whole Bitcoin thing, the inscriptions, ordinals. When that hit the streets and Pepe got onto Bitcoin, that was, that's definitely one you could take a chance on. But you want to use a targeted kind of like, let me throw little amounts at things that seem to make sense, right? The AI craze happened. Hey, buy some AI coins. Doesn't even matter if they're fundamentally good. Just buy the stupid coin in small amounts. Maybe put a little bit more on the ones that seem to make sense more, but not so much that you will be like hurting if you lost it. Be like, okay, whatever, 1%. 2%. All right, fine. Whatever. I can stand to lose 2% of my net worth to try and strike a 100x or something like that, or 20x. Okay. Anyways, that's the general. I would put Tari into that same kind of mentality, right? It might have some fundamentally better use cases. It might be fundamentally better design than other coins. I don't know. But still, though, it's a new coin, and you have to use kind of heuristic group thinking. Okay, I think that's enough about crypto. Oh, there's Tron. I don't know why Tron's up there. I don't look at Tron all the time. I occasionally look at Tron. Wow, look at that shit. It's actually doing pretty good. New highs recently, or new local highs. Cool for Tron holders out there. Yeah, it's because they also have USDC, right? It's a major thing that USDC operates on. So, anyways, let's go to the macro. We'll call it a day after that. I'll start with the reverse repos, I guess. Yeah. So notice that. Wait, what happened? Oh, I hit the space bar on accident. There we go. Yeah, so we're still in this kind of, slight little bit of uptrend here for the reverse repos. I don't think that so far, like, this isn't anything major to worry about, right? You can see that it may be, right? Maybe that's the beginning of this. We're still not Still not convinced that this has to happen anytime soon. Seems to be a pretty slow moving market. It feels a lot like bonds, right? So nothing there, not really much to see there. Price of oil is stable. We've kind of gotten back into this big triangle. Man, we watched this triangle for months, guys. We watched this literally since last fall, almost for a year now, right? Going on a year. We watched this thing and said, hey, this is about to break down. It's going to break down. This is our alpha on the crash. It crashed just before the markets crashed. And then we had the Iran thing. We said, hey, it looks like they're going to figure out how to use the news cycle and psychology and sociology to get the markets in the spot that they need them. And now, oil is back here. Everything's calming down, right? Return of normality. Oil sitting at 70. That's great. It's just, it's cheap enough to supply the energy needs of the world without becoming, burdensome as a cost, but not so cheap that the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex petrodollar has problems, right? So it's in that Goldilocks zone. That's even more reason to suspect, hey, there's probably more gains coming. Oil is stable. Dollar index has actually finally hit our target, long time target here. We said this line at the bottom here, we expected that is the place, and now maybe it's time for a little bit of bullishness for the dollar index, which actually wouldn't be a problem, right? Yes, Dixie is somewhat anti-correlated to risk markets, but stability, again, it's the name of the game when it comes to bonds and markets and underlying assets like oil, is stability, right? You can have upside, you can have downside. It needs to be gentle, needs to be reasonable. And you don't want big spiky movements like this, right? That was the entrance into the bear market back in 2021, 22. So right now, yeah, we've kind of hit some headliner key level, right? This very long term support line. It doesn't have to hold perfectly, right? You could come down here, do that, and you would still say, hey, that support line is intact, right? When you're talking about lines like this, again, you're talking about zones, but it is a headliner spot, right? You would expect, hey, maybe the dollar has had sufficient strength against some of the basket currencies that it's compared against, the euro, the JPY, the Canadian, the Aussie, and I don't know, I'm missing one, the Swedish franc. So maybe the dollar index it's had sufficient weakness, and now maybe you would look for the dollar to be a little bit more bullish versus those currencies, right, at the moment. But okay, nothing to see there. Nothing problematic. Gold, obviously, gold. Gold is actually performing reasonably okay. We're on the 2-hour chart here, 2-hour candles. And we're sort of approaching this upper standard deviation zone, and it wouldn't surprise me for gold to be encountering some resistance soon, right? If you want to call this chart as being bullish and getting ready to pounce again, you want to see it consolidate above the blue lines there, right? You want to see it consolidate in or above that zone. Right now, you're approaching that zone as being somewhat of resistance, but let's look at it. It hasn't totally respected that as a hard capping area numerous times. So and with the liquidity coming to the market, maybe it's time for some gold action again, right? Maybe gold is setting up for some more action. Still though, the last time, I know what happens every time, right? Gold pumps first, the markets continue, maybe you get some scare, you get some pullback, and then the markets bounce back, and then they start outperforming gold, and everyone sees it, and everyone, the believers of gold, the investors of gold, slowly, voluntarily leave gold as an investment because they say, wow, we've had so many gains, let's pivot those gains, and the stock market's gaining, but gold isn't gaining, so let's sell our gold, and gold ends up with this sort of like capped action, and then it bleeds out slowly over time. So I do worry that could be in the cards here for gold. I'm not convinced that gold is necessarily ready to shoot for 4,000 or significantly higher highs. But maybe the M2 will just tell me I'm wrong, right? That's possible. If only I could get access to the current real-time M2 money supply. Oh, please, I don't know, universe or charting gods or whoever, deities, please provide me with my real-time M2 supply. Don't make me go pay $50,000 to Bloomberg Terminal because I really, really don't.
Is that how much it actually costs?
I don't know. It's in the tens of thousands, right? It's in the tens of thousands to get access to that thing. So maybe it would be more worth it. Maybe we could like pool our money. I'm going to start a Kuno or something. Access to.
Do I, as a contributor to this investment, do I get a certain percentage of information back according to my investment?
Yeah, we could probably figure that out. You get 5 charts 5 times a week. Once a day, you can have 5 assets that I'll update you on there. on their price. The only one we really care about is the fucking M2 because you can access everything else. The reason that Bloomberg Terminal is used so much is because it's absolute bleeding edge, fast, up-to-date prices of everything. They're plugged into everything. So that's why everyone uses Bloomberg Terminal, not for the M2. But it is a nice, I'm pretty sure it's on Bloomberg Terminal. So I don't know. Maybe I'll make the Kuno. I don't know. I didn't need the M2 to tell you that markets were about like that they were consolidating with upward bias. Like we could see that in the charts. So I didn't, it would help. It would be a nice corroborating point, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep following Joe Consorti or whatever his name is, and he posts it like once every few weeks, so that could be useful. Maybe I should just keep track of him a little bit closer. But unless we have comments, I don't think I have anything else going on. Let's check. I guess let's check YouTube. Lil Wayne and Paris Hilton still have their unlocks coming. Wait, Lil Wayne? Bro, how did Ricardo get Lil Wayne and Paris Hilton? I saw a headline about Paris Hilton the other day. She did something like admirable. I don't remember what it was, but it was like Paris Hilton doing something that seems actually genuinely like good natured. So it's possible, right? There's real people in the wealthy elites that, they have a good heart and they're not nefarious people. So, I mean, she's holding on to Tari, so she invested in Tari, so she's got some conceptualization of freedom money to do that. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else for you guys when it comes to charts, when it comes to what we should think the market should do. Overall, big summary headliner here is that we've still got positive pressure. Expect maybe Bitcoin to make another little move higher with some consolidation at that point. Stock market's consolidation with upward bias. You should be long. You shouldn't be. You should not be on the macro crash thesis anymore, right? That would be old news. That's that was so last month, guys. The news cycle here drives things, and if you see news cycles and you get wind of them immediately, if you're in the first 30 minutes of a news cycle, you can leverage that. The markets have been following news. You get a big news event, buy it, right, or sell it, or whatever, and then take your profits quickly, and then just be happy, bro. When you make 10%, be happy with that. Take that. If you traded some news cycle and you got 10% on that trade, take it. That's really the way to go when it comes to trading. You got gains, you got profits, take them profits. Now, obviously, your longer term stack, right? Don't just be selling your long term stack willy nilly. But if you're trading a news cycle or something that you got wind of quickly, get your profits and get out. That's the way to do. Then you could just do that over and over and over again over the course of time. So, anyways, that's all I got to say about that.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you very much for the press report as always. Salute. I think we will go ahead and move into the guest segment because we do have our guest in the background, and as long as Doug is back, he might be AFK.
Stalling for Doug, for his baby, for his blonde-haired, crazy-haired baby.
Potentially. So maybe instead of guest, we'll go ahead and jump into the news because Tony did just come up. As long as he's ready.
Tony.
So I think Tony, hello, how's it going?
Hey guys, good.
Would you be okay to do the news right now?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Stalling for Doug, so.
He's got his parental responsibilities.
Yeah, he's got a child.
Please.
Yeah, right.
It's just a child.
He's gonna have a Bloomberg terminal.
I'm
soon.
back.
I'm
back.
Oh, he's back. Okay, he's here. All right. So.
I was listening to everything, but I was unable to access.
Understood. So I guess with that, we will...
Bloomberg terminal, Kuno. Let's do it.
I feel like that might violate their terms of service somehow.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Having like thousands of people use one account.
Fundraising a Bloomberg terminal.
All for one stupid metric.
Okay.
Maybe I can somehow piece together the things that they're looking at, and we can get a close enough approximation, right? A lot of times the rough approximation is all you need. You'd be shocked if you can get a couple things and get a rough approximation on a couple, like 2 or 3 things. the intersection of those things can get you shockingly close to the right answer. I actually learned this was damn it, I forgot his name. It's a physicist. This physicist back in like the 70s or 60s, he was renowned for like just making wildly good guesses at things that you would think are just incredibly hard to guess. And it's the classic example that they used is how many piano tuners are there in Chicago. And I was like 13 years old, and like a family friend asked me that one time. I was like, what? He's like, and he kind of walked me through this thought process. I was like, that's really interesting. And that always stuck with me. I posted about it, and then someone was like, wait, isn't that just the, forget the name of it, but it's a physicist that did that. And I looked it up. I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize he was teaching me, like this whole, like an established concept. But anyways, point is that if we could just get like that M2 money supply, I could probably estimate it from just a few key metrics, and it would be close enough.
Awesome, buddy. How you feeling about Bitcoin? Going up, going down. I mean, what do you see as the Bitcoin top this cycle?
I mean, 200,000 is that
information.
The 4-year cycle would put Bitcoin at 200,000. That would be reasonable. Let's just go to the chart here. That's ETH BTC. Here's BTC USD. This will take a short moment. Regression analysis.
Yeah, let's see if we can pull up your chart.
Yeah, easier. Picture's worth 1,000 words and all. So the green line is the lower boundary. It's green because you should buy when you're close to that boundary. You should really buy when you're below the blue line, statistically speaking. But yeah, for this cycle, it's a moving target, right? The cycles change slightly every time, and maybe with all the institutionalization of Bitcoin, maybe Bitcoin should be institutionalized. I don't know. You're looking here at the red line. At this exact moment, that would be about 187,000 if Bitcoin actually pumped there. If we were looking at the 4-year cycle, let's just call it 2026, nice round number, that'd be about 210,000, right? So it just depends on how markets want to move and how things are going to go. But ultimately, yeah, we would be looking for a Bitcoin top, a blow off top at this upper red boundary. So effectively, this chart is dollar cost average into Bitcoin when you're below the blue line, and heavier as you approach the green, and dollar cost out of Bitcoin as you approach the red line. So probably within like 20%. And you might try and profit
in theory.
You mean like Bitcoin's going to break all my models?
I don't know. I mean, I guess things can change, right? No, like if behaviors catch on, everybody catches on to the same thing, then don't things often change? Like maybe things end up being much lower than expected, right? If everybody is playing using the same chart to make their prediction.
The thing is, they're not. They're retarded.
Okay.
Like they're all using rainbow
with
logs
Bitcoin, though. I feel I don't know. Yeah,
right.
But that is the thing, right? As markets catch on, right?
I mean, the other thing too is it's harder to move the price of a highly liquid asset. So as Bitcoin market cap grows, it's harder for the price to move. You need more and more investment for it to actually move. So that's why you
barely need anything to move Monero.
Yeah,
right?
That's why you see diminishing returns, right?
Yeah,
My theory on this. So, I mean, first of all, statistical analysis doesn't tell you that, hey, this is, the statistical analysis is the map. It's not the territory, right? We're not making a reification fallacy. We're just using statistics as a mean of trying to gain insight in real processes that are taking place. And it's my opinion that the Bitcoin chart is exhibiting a real process, right? These blow-off tops are a real economic process, and some kind of limit is happening there. Some kind of economic limit is probably the reason for every single one of these tops, right? The market just was unable to go higher at that moment. This was the most that sort of fraudulent means could pump the market at that moment. Like the price of Bitcoin in 2021 had no business being at 70,000. It was only there because of fraud. These are like the maximum bubble fraud leverage price of Bitcoin. That's what this economic process, I believe, is showing us, or something like that. So could we see a new fraud bubble happen with Bitcoin? We absolutely could.
Oh yeah, MicroStrategy and
yeah, exactly. You use the fiat system to buy more debt, to take more bonds, to buy more Bitcoin, to keep that cycle
Right, and
going.
now it's not just micro. We're seeing like a boom there, right? There's a bunch of these companies coming out saying they want to be Bitcoin treasury companies, Ethereum treasury companies. This is kind of like the next. This is shaping up to be the collapse, right? You're gonna see it. It just feels like it, right? It doesn't feel sustainable to have that being the new fad. I don't know.
It is sustainable. Like fiat is fraudulent, and the way that they run that central banking system is fraudulent, but it's metastable fraud. And yeah, it has these crazy cycles. But
No, but I'm saying if we have micro strategies, right? It's potentially going to destabilize Bitcoin at some point.
I don't think so. If anything,
No?
it just stabilizes. You know, it stabilizes the price. You have all these. You have more people that are willing to throw more money at it. More companies that can take bonds, that can use the fiat fraud, that can use the money printer to prop up the price of Bitcoin. That's what they're doing. They're just openly saying, "Hey, we're going to use the money printer to prop the price of Bitcoin." That's what Michael Saylor is saying. And
I mean,
it's
Saylor
not a
holds
terrible idea.
how much? What do they hold right now? They hold like almost like 1 million Bitcoin now. No.
Yeah, they're working on like 5% of the supply, like
Okay,
3,
yeah.
4, 5% of the supply. No, it can keep going. It's if anything, it actually stabilizes Bitcoin at these higher prices. I think they
Right,
found
just
a
in
way
a
to do it.
scenario where things start to dump and then they have to unload, right? They go,
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, that's the nature of blow off tops, right? You have excessive leverage that caused an exponential price movement, and when that breaks, you get a lot of players that have to get washed out, and then only a couple survive, and you get an exponential dump off. But that doesn't necessarily, like, something that has meta stability to it can survive those kinds of dumps and then find a bottom and continue. The stock market's a perfect example of a metastable, right? It's such a good idea fundamentally. Owning equity in a company is such an economically and society useful thing that despite the fraud that comes with it and these crazy bubbles, it's such a good idea fundamentally that fundamentals eventually comes into play and puts a stop on the market, along with, the Federal Reserve. And right now, like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is such a fundamentally good idea. And people progressively have seen it over the past 15 years. It's such a fundamentally good idea that it can survive these crazy fraud bubble cycles. So the fact that it has these like crazy exponential pumps and then fraud dump offs, right, and then repeats that cycle, it's a sign to us that it's actually metastable. Now, is Bitcoin like a good currency?
It's a force of nature.
Yeah, it's an economic force of nature for sure. Now, is it a good currency? No, but it has sufficient qualities of investable like money and decentralization and censorship resistance for that narrative to take hold in people's minds. And so it's here to stay. Like Bitcoin's not dumping off and going to zero no matter what.
Oh yeah, of course not.
I would be shocked if this regression boundary is broken by any significant means, whether to the upside or the downside. Now, it will break down at some point. In a decade or so, these lines are going to all cross. And
I'm just saying, as the market becomes more wise to it, so maybe you don't actually approach that line. The peak happens before it, right? Because everybody's anticipating the peak.
I
at the same
guarantee you,
time.
there are some smart people at big, billion-dollar trading firms that have this chart and understand the power of this chart, but the plebs don't have it. The closest thing they've come is what they call Bitcoin power law. I have seen, like, maybe I saw one other guy that did, I think it was Ben Cohen, that almost got this chart right. He was close, but he still missed the mark. But I guarantee you that the big boys, they have this chart. They know what this looks like. So it's possible. Yeah, it's possible that that we actually don't get quite fully to the red line and we don't get quite fully to the green line.
Of course.
So, because I mean, right here, we didn't. Right, we missed that.
What are your equivalent lines for Monero at this point?
Monero doesn't have a clean regression chart. I can't give it a solid like mathematical equation over its lifetime.
You screwed up because all the fuckery, right?
No, it's more so that Bitcoin had to launch sort of like natively, organically, and get the attention of the market because it was the first, right? So you have this growth phase that happened that was actually quite natural and organic, that lends itself well to statistical analysis. We can draw best fit lines for this chart. The problem is that when new coins launch, now everybody knows what Bitcoin did, so they all front run that. And so you get this massive, let's just go to Monero. You get this, because Monero is not unique in this respect. You get this very large pump at the very beginning, and then it sort of like flattens off for a longer period of time, whereas Bitcoin had like more longer term stable prices.
Well,
right?
at some point you'll be able to do the chart though, right? And when enough time passes.
Not necessarily. Like there's no guarantee
Really?
that
Wow.
there's no guarantee that a chart has to obey. Like, okay, we could use regression analysis to draw a chart that is better than chance, because that's all this is. When you say, let me find a best fit line, you're saying, well, let me propose this line or that line or a different formula, right? And let's compare that against statistical analysis to see which line actually has the best predictable capacity. But the problem is that there's not any good lines here that actually give you solid extrapolation capacity. In other words, yes, we could do a regression analysis on this. Yes, you would have a p-value that's higher than chance. No, that would not be very useful as an extrapolation predictive capacity for the near future. The best we could do, that's kind of what drawing these lines are, right? Like drawing this line right here. In a way, that's kind of what people are doing when they're drawing trend lines, is they're saying, hey, there's an obvious trend without mathematically proving, that this is the correct trend line. It's close enough. And so we can use some extrapolation power on the basis of trend lines. But that's all like very fuzzy, intuitive statistics.
How about Monero to Bitcoin? Obviously, same issue, but is it less? Is it not as bad?
Yeah, same issue. When I realized how strong, how powerful best line fitting, or AKA regression analysis was, I tried to apply it to as many things as I could, but there's really only a few assets that it really is clean enough to have extrapolation
gold
power.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. Gold. Actually,
that
the gold.
sucks, man.
I thought the gold to Bitcoin chart would be a better regression, a cleaner regression. It's not. The Bitcoin to the dirty fiat USD was the best, cleanest regression that I could find. Like out of all the ones that I did, it had the highest residual standard error. It had the lowest residual standard error. It had the highest p-values, the highest adjusted R-squared. So, yeah.
How about Monero to a kilo of cocaine? I bet you that'd be clean lines.
Could I? Do they? That would be, bro.
Oh
You could make a lot of money supplying the market price of cocaine. Like, you. That would be amazing, dude. I'm gonna
check the numbers, buddy. I think it's gonna be a clean chart.
I've got to find a darknet market with those historical prices and then create like trading coke or something. There's like a charting.